And for this week's show, I'm pleased to be joined by two members of the Dr. Martin Luther King Commemorative Committee who have been active for many years in making sure that our city celebrates with a citywide celebration. First is Larry Botti. Larry, welcome back to the show.
How are you, Mayor? Happy
Good.
New Year.
Happy New Year to you. You've been on the show numerous times in the past, and we thank you for coming back again tonight.
Glad to be here.
And the next is Reverend Joseph Adair, who's also going to be the guest speaker today at the Martin Luther King ceremony. Reverend Adair, welcome.
How you doing, Mayor? Happy New Year.
Thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
I know you had words of wisdom for us earlier today, and I hope you
Yes.
can share some of that with our viewers.
Certainly.
First, today, Martin Luther King Day. You're both part of the commemorative committee. Larry, we'll start with you. How long have you been on the committee? When was it created? Did you create it?
I did not create
You ain't been here that long, right, Larry?
That's right. But I can't even really tell you how long I've been on the committee. I can tell you, however, that the committee has been in existence 22 years. Some of the key founders, or at least two of the key founders of the committee, are Chessie Roberts and the late Stephen Sampson. And then, of course, there were many others along the way. But this was our 22nd annual celebration and honoring of the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King.
And Reverend Adair, when did you get involved with the committee? You haven't been around 22 years. You don't look that old.
Thank you, Mayor. I've actually been on the committee 10 years. 10 years ago, I started to get involved with it because I think it's a great committee to be on. Dr. King is certainly one of my greatest heroes, and I want to do whatever I could to help keep his memory alive in the city of Elizabeth.
And this year you're going to be the guest speaker. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Okay. Some of the other members you serve on the committee are?
Donna Alexander, Denise Lowe, Mr. Rod Spearman of the Presbyterian Center, Farid Fanelli.
Yolanda Edie, who's down at School 1.
And whenever we do this, we run the risk of leaving someone out.
Right,
we
yeah.
apologize to that.
Yeah, we ask them to charge it to our minds and not our hearts.
There you go. So you already got that covered. Right? You're already there. Larry, some of the events that are part of this year's celebration, when and where will they take place? I noticed you're going to be at the New York Historical Museum.
Yeah, we went to the New York Historical Society on Saturday, this past Saturday, January the 13th. We went there to see a brand new exhibit that they have called New York Divided, Slavery and the Civil War. We took a group of middle school students from the city of Elizabeth as well as some adults to serve as chaperones. This exhibit is an exhibit that looks at New York's role in slavery. We often think of the South as where slavery existed and where it existed only. But slavery was right here in New Jersey, right here in Elizabeth, and New York was the biggest port for importing slaves in the United States. And so this exhibit looks at how those who were in favor of slavery in New York were looking to maintain its existence, and those who were opposed to it were looking to abolish it. It kind of looks, and the reason that we went was because it looks at the anti-slavery movement in particular as a kind of forerunner to our modern day civil rights movement. And so that's the tie-in.
Yeah. And Reverend Adair, the historical aspect that Larry talks about with young people, sometimes we don't do enough of that collectively.
I agree with you.
How do you deal with that issue, especially in your church with some of the young people?
Well, Mayor, I think we need to take the approach that we need to educate our young people in the home, in the churches, and in the schools. We as African Americans particularly, I believe, should take the lead role in teaching our children about the civil rights movement, because there are a lot of things that our kids take for granted today that we had to fight and die for. For example, I always tease my children, you know, it seems as though when they get on the bus, for example, they go right to the back of the bus automatically. And I remind them that there was a time when we
So did I, by the way.
I remind them that there was a time that we had to ride the back of the bus and things of that nature, because I think this generation of children, they need to really understand that they need to take advantage of voting, for example. I always go crazy during election time when I encourage people to vote. The apathy that they have for voting and things of that nature. There are people who died for that, you know, and I think that we just need to have a collective effort of teaching our children the importance of continuing the legacy of particularly Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
And you mentioned the Civil War. I mean, growing up, everybody, no, I shouldn't say everybody, but it's kind of taught that Civil War was fought over slavery, but it really wasn't. I mean, that was an afterthought on the North side and a catalyst maybe for ending it, but that was not the reason it started.
Well, when you really study it, you find out that that was the real reason, because the reason was, you know, the United States was moving westward, and there was this big debate about whether those western states, those midwestern
Well, what I meant
states,
to say is the northern states weren't really fond of eliminating it. They really wanted a
right.
balance. They wanted, the northern states wanted to keep it, but they just wanted it to be balanced in the Senate. That's what I meant to say.
That's exactly it.
Right.
And again, as you in the question you raised before, what do we do about teaching this? We need certainly more of this in the homes, in the churches, and in the schools, because kids just don't know this history. I'm a big proponent of the idea that black children in particular, if they knew all of our history, and when I say our history, I'm talking about the history of the United States, because it's your history, it's my history, it's Reverend Adair's, it's all of our history. Right. If they really knew that, we wouldn't have, I believe, we wouldn't have the problems that we have today with youth violence and gangs. I believe part of that, a big part of that, is because our kids don't know their history, our history.
The events that take place, it's not only this one, but there's also a gospel concert was held yesterday. Reverend Dale, were you part of that?
Yes, I was. Great time.
Were you singing?
Union Baptist Church. No, not this time. I had to save my voice for Monday.
For Monday.
Yeah, in case, you know, I had to raise the roof a little bit. But no, it was a great event. A lot of great singing and praise dancing, and the bells from the Union Baptist Church, the bell ringers from the Union Baptist Church, they really set the mood.
Good. And the theme for this year's celebration?
Theme for this year's celebration is acting justly, loving mercy, and walking humbly. And
how do you tie that into everyday life, Reverend Adair?
Well, I think in terms of the message that I preached today was that I look at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s greatest inspiration. It certainly wasn't Gandhi, although Gandhi was a great inspiration in his life. His greatest inspiration was his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, Jesus describes how we as people obtain mercy and blessings by showing mercy to other people. And certainly Dr. King showed mercy to a lot of people. And he was able to bring people together who had merciful spirits and hearts. Because as you know, Mayor, the civil rights movement really didn't gain notoriety or power until a lot of Caucasian men and women got involved with it, because you know we saw all of the kids being attacked by the dogs and the hoses and those things, and America was shocked, and then people began to get involved.
That was
with
the
it.
power of television back in the 50s.
Power of television. And people of all colors, whether you're white, Latina, or African Americans, and when you show mercy, there's a reciprocal aspect to it. You gain mercy. What you sow is what you reap.